Hello and welcome to New Consciousness Activation, and welcome Dr. Amber Wolf. I'm very happy to have you here today. So Amber, you're a teacher, presenter, you're producer, you're a healer, you're the creator of the Lemurian Sisterhood, so many things. So I'll let you kind of fill in all the other details to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Natalie, and thank you for having me here. I'm on the other side of the camera today, so to speak. This morning I did an interview. This evening it's this way. So I love this model of getting together because we can share so much in a short amount of time and we can connect with so many people. So this is great. And thanks for having me, and I look forward to this next hour with you. The Lemurian Sisterhood, and all that other list of things that I am and do, and my life is never boring. Never
That's
boring.
Great.
As a matter of fact, sometimes I have to make the time for me to not do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been really one of the most healing things I've done in conjunction with the awakening of the divine feminine. We have had for thousands of years a paradigm of women and who we are, what we do, what's expected of us. And now that's all shifting, and it's all of us doing it. And that's the other beautiful thing about doing the media like this, is that all of us are out there saying how it is for us and helping other women. I don't want to say wake up, but become aware of the other possibilities and there isn't anything or anyone that's better than another. I'm a mom, so I've done that. I've been a stay-at-home mom even, and I only got to do it for 1 year, but it was the first year of my son's life, and that was such a gift to me. So you don't need to be in business or out on the road or doing anything like anyone else is doing, because part of the awakening of the divine feminine is each of us discovering our own unique gifts. And that's what makes this so exciting for me, because when I'm in front of an audience, and especially teaching the Lemurian Sisterhood sacred circles, and I look out into the sea of faces, not one is the same as another. Not one. And that's the same as our gifts are. Our gifts are as unique as our face or our life. And we each need to bring what that is forward into the world so that all of us can add to the collective consciousness and the awakening that we're experiencing now. And I see that more and more for women that are, and it's exciting. It's really exciting because we're ready, right? We're
Absolutely.
ready. It's time. And the world needs us. And part of what I teach with the Lemurian Sisterhood is our own sacredness. Looking at our own life, this physical vessel, our years on the planet, the gift of a human life, all of that as sacred. And it's not just, oh, here we are again doing this. It's not that. It's not. And because we have this vessel, this gift, we have a responsibility also to really grow our souls as much as we can in this life. And for me, that has been, as long as I can remember, being on the edge, always on the edge of the wave, the edge of the whatever it was. And that's not easy for a woman, because I was, and many, certainly people my age, were programmed to be wives or have be a wife and a little other job, on the side, but not to really take charge of our own lives and bring forward our own gifts. And I've also been a wife, and that's a wonderful thing, but it's not all for me.
Right.
And I don't know if it is for everyone. Maybe it is for some people. And if it is, great, because that means there's another happy home,
Right.
and that adds to the energy of, love on the planet. But with the Lemurian Sisterhood, we sing the song, I Am Sacred. And
Mm-hmm.
that was the first song that came through from the Star Mothers, that Cryon kept saying to me, where are the songs that you sang in those Lemurian circles, in the sacred circles? And that was the first one that came through. So when we start seeing ourselves as sacred, it changes everything. And you can't unknow that.
Mm-hmm.
And you begin to act differently and speak differently. And when we start seeing that for ourselves, we're able to teach the world that we are sacred, they are sacred, we're all of us. Every life, every opinion, every job, every soul is sacred. And for me, working with the women, that's the beginning of the change, is
Mm-hmm.
women understanding that they're sacred. And from there, they just blossom, because that's not anything that we were ever taught. We have a whole different program going on about who we are and what our value is.
So,
So,
so let me actually take you to that, the journey that you yourself took, because um, let's go back to the beginning of the Lemurian Sisterhood, right? So you, in this lifetime, you kind of picked up from where you left off back in Lemuria, and you have begun to meld with Mele'ha, which was a Lemurian priestess, who you were in Lemuria, right? So can you take us through that journey? How did that come about? How did you learn that you were Mele'ha?
yeah. Well, I will. I don't want to leave out the very important part about my beloved Sid, because he was the first person that ever spoke to me about Lemuria. And when I met him, he and his then wife had moved from a spiritual community in California
Mm-hmm.
to Colorado. And the spiritual community in California was called the Lemurian Fellowship. And
Wow.
it's still active today. It has a website,
Mm-hmm.
lemurianfellowship.org. And I didn't, when he talked to me about it, I didn't get the feeling that I was there. I had no aha moments or any of that,
Mm-hmm.
except that in the 14 years they were part of that community, there was a lot of philosophy of the way of life. And that way of life, in that intentional community of Lemuria, intentional spiritual community of Lemuria, was that the women were the hub of the wheel, holding the grid of the spiritual energy. And
Mm-hmm.
they were honored for that. And they were needed for that. And everyone knew it. So they were the healers, the teachers, the priestesses, the goddesses, mother daughters. They were the musicians. They were the ones that had that energy and kept that energy intact on that continent
Mm-hmm.
of Makulia or Mu.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I resonated with when Sid talked about it. That was what I said, yes. But I didn't really, pursue it other than that.
Mm-hmm.
And then with Sid came Lee, because they were friends from California.
Lee
And
Carroll.
Lee Carroll, yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
Cryon. And I met him, Lee, in 1998 at a Summer Light Conference in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And gosh, I just liked him immediately. He's just this approachable, nice guy and humorous and a little self-deprecating and kind and, it was easy. And it wasn't too many years after that that I started hosting him
Mm-hmm.
in Boulder, and then also producing the Journey Home for him. That's based on the book The Journey Home, the Cryon book. And when we produced that together, I think 4 of those, and I also was a facilitator with the Journey Home, and we did that, I think, for 4 years. And then after that, Cryon gave the assignment that we were to do something, a 4-day event called Discovery.
Mm-hmm.
And synchronistically enough, we have a Discovery coming up next month in Canada that I'm very excited about because we haven't done it since 2013.
Mm-hmm.
So Sid and Lee and I did the Discoveries. And so I hosted Lee once a year. We did Discovery once a year. And just got to know him. And one night when we were setting up for the Boulder hosting, when he was in Boulder, he said he wanted to talk to me. And in that moment, he asked if I would do a new program with him, these 2 days in each place on a weekend. And, here's how it would be, and so on and so on. And it wasn't even a heartbeat when I said yes. And so I started traveling with him and doing that. And in the first year, Cryon didn't talk about Lemuria too much. In the second year, he started to talk about it. And Dr. Todd and the whale tones that he did started to be part of the events. So I would be, with this live channeling every weekend and these tones every weekend. And pretty soon, I think that whatever was waiting was able to come through. And I had an Akashic awakening to my life in Lemuria, as I didn't really know that I was a priestess, but I knew for sure I was there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was Cryon that told me a whole year later, when he did the first channel to the Lemurian Sisterhood in Boulder. He told me what my name was and who I had been, that I had been the last priestess on Lemuria before it became the islands, before it, quote unquote, sank. And so from there, it's just expanded in ways that, like all of this, I've had, it's nothing that I ever could have imagined. And I am blessed every day, even though, I still have to run a business and do all the left brain stuff and, figure out how to use these things so we can have interviews and shipping and printing and all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like I just get to meditate and bring through this information all day. It's been very balanced. But I am continuously surprised by what comes and how ready people are for this information.
Mm-hmm.
So every weekend that Lee and I are together, and sometimes in other kinds of events, like the Summer Light Conference, I'll have a Lemurian Sisterhood circle, and Cryon will channel. And since January of 2014, there are over 40 channels, and that's how we start our meeting. And what that has done is create the foundation for the Lemurian Sisterhood, for my life in the Lemurian Sisterhood, now and then. He speaks about Mele'ha and the things that I did then, and my sacred assignments now, and also what the Pleiadians had to do with the Lemurians, and what happened when Lemuria dissolved, sort of, and we had to leave that place and come to the rest of the world that wasn't sinking. So there's an incredible history there that has come one little channel at a time.
Right.
So as of right now, the last channel was just last weekend in Minneapolis, and it was about love and wisdom, and it was just beautiful. And I listened to them again because I don't get everything the first time,
Right.
many of those things are.
Right.
And so that brings us up to today.
Well, there are so many questions I want to ask you, but I want to, I guess, let's talk about, so I have been listening to those Lemurian channels that Cryon does, and I think they're very amazing, and they are posted free on Cryon's website, and I believe, is there a link from your website?
They're on my website, but there's
your website. There's a link to Cryon. Right. Okay. But they're available for people to listen to for
Absolutely.
free.
Yeah.
And so, what I noticed that back in the early 90s, when I was kind of starting to, I was sort of in the middle of my first wave of spiritual awakening, and I was going to, spiritual groups and communities and doing events. And I noticed at that time that those were predominantly attended by women. 90% probably of people that were involved in that were women. And so at that time, I thought, well, it makes sense. Women kind of don't have important things to do in life, so they just, they just sort of do these things. They talk about fluffy angels and, auras.
Yeah.
And I've recently thought about how tremendously my view of women shifted as a result of listening to those particular channels, because they really give a lot of history, a lot of very specific, practical, like everyday life of women at that time, and it just gave me such a tremendous feeling of respect. And I just see women, my perspective really shifted. And so I was wondering if you could talk about that in terms of just what do you know now about the position of women in society, or what it could be, at least what it was at that time. And the focus of our conversations now is new consciousness activation. So hopefully we're going in that direction of activating consciousness and coming back to that time where women begin to take the place that they are here for, that belongs to them.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great question, and pertinent, very timely.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that I experience a lot of that's happening is the men want the Lemurian Brotherhood.
Mm-hmm.
Every weekend, wherever I am, they're like, well, what about us?
Right. Yep.
And, and how are we supposed to wake up if there's not, something for us? Good question, isn't it?
Yes. And I wouldn't want to leave them out.
Well, and what's happening is this really beautiful unfolding. At this last weekend in Minneapolis, there was a gentleman there who came up to me and said, hey, remember, my name is so-and-so, and I was the one who suggested that while the women were having their meeting, that the men get together, the ones that, were waiting for their women who were in my meeting, or that just wanted to be a part of that. And so it's been 2 years of my saying that from the stage, that if you would like to get together and meet, have a meeting, you're welcome to do that. Here's, somebody who's interested, and they'll go to get together most of the time, more than half the time. This meeting had 9 men. So while we were having, and that's something Cryon says again and again, is that the men had our backs.
Absolutely.
So we were in the room in our little circle doing it. It was a big circle. There were about 60 women, and the men were having their meeting, 9 men. And they made up a little name for themselves about the cryonite kryptonites or something, and they exchanged emails,
Mhm.
and it was great. So really what we want is balance. We don't want the women to take over. We want the
Absolutely.
women to find out what they who they are as a contributor to the balance of the planet. And then the men, gosh, they don't have to do that crazy stuff they've been doing either.
Hmm.
That's the wonderful thing. And I talk with a lot of men who are like really tired of being tough guys, and
Hmm.
that were raised boys don't cry, and that were go out there and take care of your family and be a man. And
Hmm.
it's like, really? No, it's not balanced for them. It never has been either.
Right.
So, really, that's what we're looking for here, is that in our awakening, we do it together, that we all do. We can't just one of us, or we can't just women,
Right.
but because I'm a woman and because I've had this experience as Mele'ha, that's my sacred assignment. So, there are some men who actually give to a scholarship fund for the women to come to the sacred circles, and that was totally spontaneous. I never suggested it, never asked for it, never anything. And so the men that are at these crying events are there for a reason already, and
Hmm.
so they have these inspirations, and it's just beautiful that they have that. They do want to partake, and they do want to be a part of it. And we really do. We all want to wake up.
Absolutely. So for our listeners who maybe have not heard, of even Cryon or Lemurian Sisterhood, can you give us some juicy details about what was life like for women, and what was their role in that society, and maybe as opposed to men's role?
Yeah. So, from what I know, and I think I have kind of a unique viewpoint in that I had the teachings from my beloved Sid, who had a completely different experience for 14 years of what Cryon is saying. However, there are some really salient points that are the same.
Mm-hmm.
And what I have this fantasy that um, the moon would be getting full, or the moon would be coming new, or it would be solstice or equinox, and the men would say to their women, I don't know if they called them wives, it doesn't really matter, honey, isn't your meeting tonight?
Mm-hmm.
I'll take the kids, I'll make them dinner, I'll give them a bath, I'll read them a story and put them to bed. You go to your meeting,
Mm-hmm.
because we need you to go to your meeting.
Right.
We need you to be together to continue to create this frequency that is a spiritual energy that is the grid of this continent.
Mm-hmm.
So they were supportive. They knew that, yeah, and they knew what their jobs were. They were going to keep away the whatever might bother us while we were having our meeting. They would, bring firewood or whatever the heavy lifting guy stuff was. And I say that not being politically incorrect, but just being
Right.
realistic, you know,
Right.
um, so that we had this beautiful sort of understanding that we do what we do, and you do what we do, and you do, and we do it together, and we balance each other, and we want that, and we need that for this awakening to continue. And I'm talking about the old awakening in Lemuria,
Right.
and of course now the new awakening here, and it's come around again. And what I know from my recent experience through the Star Mothers is that we were encoded. Our DNA was encoded, implanted. Each one of the 7 sisters, of which there were really 9, took up residence in one of the centers of our bodies, which we now call chakras. So the seven centers and the palms, and they were there for this first experiment in Lemuria, and that's how the spirituality was created. Kryon has said that there was not spirituality before the Pleiadians brought Kundalini to the planet, especially to Lemuria. That we were, we could reason, and we had language, and we could problem solve, and we could, take care of ourselves, hunt, gather, fish, whatever. But it was because of the consensual experiment between the Pleiadians and the Lemurians that spirituality was brought in. And in bringing that and encoding us with that, it was given that, this is the new paradigm, and this is the frequency that the women will hold, and this is what the men will do, which it wasn't that different from what they were already doing, but it really gave them an awareness of how important each one was in what they were doing in the new paradigm of the spiritual energy of the continent, of the planet.
And there seemed to be a real honor for each other from both sides, and real appreciation, and also interdependence, that women depended on men to protect them and do the things that they did, and men depended on women so women were, in a way, they had a more, because of their intuition, they had a closer connection to spirit, right? So they were, in a way, guides, and they brought the wisdom from the spirit into their life, and sort of they served as guides for men or for everybody, and that's why it was important for them to go to those meetings, because it was really important work happening there. It was the guidance that the men depended on.
Right. Otherwise, it was just another day in paradise. It was, the difference was that there was spirituality happening there, and that was the shift in the consciousness of the whole society. And there was kind of a trickle-down effect. Kryon talks about sort of a hierarchy, people that were really interested in the spiritual aspects, people that were not so interested. But there wasn't a division like you were untouchable if you weren't really interested. You just weren't, and, you did what you did along with everyone else. And, it wasn't you were forced into having this belief system. But most people really saw the value in it, because you see the value of the harmony that comes from that interplay of masculine and feminine energy, and that honoring and the encouragement of both genders using their gifts to, create a foundation for this beautiful society.
Right. And so today, when you started this work, and it's obviously growing with Lemurian Sisterhood, why do you think it's important for us today to bring women together? I mean, we could all learn about it in our own separate homes, and be on our merry way. Why is that connection important today? What does it do for us and for society?
That's a great question, Natalie. Thank you for that, because this is one of the most interesting questions because of the way our society is. We do not have community in person. Now, I meet with the Lemurian Sisterhood hosts online, and we get to see each other's faces and hear each other's voices and have an exchange. But when we are together in the physical, wow, the energy builds so much. And I can tell you from doing these meetings for years on Saturday evening during the Kryon event, the women that come from that event and go into the Sunday event make it a completely different energy in the room. The
Mm-hmm.
energy in the room is different, and it's just exciting, and it's uplifting, and it's charged. And so women coming together in community, it's so important, because we are there for each other, and we're there to reflect each other, reflect the goddess in each other. And as I was saying before, as different as each one of our faces are, when we're in these groups, we all contain aspects of each other. You know, that there's this exercise where, step forward if you've ever had this or that, or you're from a big family, or, and you're just amazed at how many people have those things in common.
Mm-hmm.
But we have something else in common. We have that Lemurian DNA. We have that very deep connection that is being activated in these groups.
And an interesting thing is that Cryon says that the souls that were women in Lemurian time are coming back as women now.
Right.
As well.
And that we planned it that way.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And that we have been the other gender. But yeah, he did a channel about that. Maybe on this past weekend, he talked about, or no, it wasn't a channel. It was in the teachings about transferring from one gender to the other.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be difficult. And sometimes there's an overlap.
Mm-hmm.
And you feel like you may be transgender.
Right.
Interesting, huh?
Mm-hmm.
And how much sense does that make? Of course it makes sense.
Right.
Yeah. So as we come together now, and I have to say this because I think it's really important that the Lemurian Sisterhood is not the only circle around. There are women having circles all over the planet, as I believe we've been doing forever. But now we're doing it in a much more public way because it's safe for us to do it now, most of us to do it now. So, you don't have to feel like you're a Lemurian to want this kind of community. Right. And I usually ask in my circles, how many of you are here because of the Lemurian part, and hands, and how many of you are here for the sisterhood part? Could be different hands. Some of them, of course, say both. So the community is just so important, and having an online community is great when you can't get to a meeting, and when you can, it's a celebration.
Right. Yeah. And I've been to several of them. I've been to one in person, and then several things that you did online. So yeah, and when I went the first time, I had no clue if I was, connected to Lemuria or not, but I just wanted to try it. But really, my sense of it has grown. I'm pretty darn sure I was there at that time, although of course I don't have any, memories of it. But it really doesn't matter. No. It's more sort of about the spirit. But I want to sort of circle back to the change in perception of women, and to me, the reason and I guess the power of what you're doing, the power of women coming together, is that we are beginning to take that place again, that role again of being the bringers of the wisdom, and being the and grounding that, and using that intuition to ground the wisdom back into the planet. And so to me, that's the power of really bringing women together, because we are kind of on a almost cellular level, I guess, reawakening that memory of who we used to be. And
it is a cellular level, absolutely. Right. Yeah. And it's interesting what you said at the beginning when you first started going to meetings, and it was 90% women, and it just seemed kind of like fluff. And I thought, but what a nice, safe way. If we had to do that, it's kind of like being underground, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if we had those meetings and people just went, you know, those are those weird women having those meetings, well, good, because we were safe. Because for many years we were not safe. So
yeah, and I have memories of that too, of
yeah,
being buried
of course,
and dying for that. Yeah,
most of us do, you know, and many men also.
right.
But now, as we really step into this global awakening, and the women bringing in the spiritual wisdom, because women have got to do it first. It's really, that's the encoding, is that the men are encoded to protect and defend and be heroes, and the women are encoded to be in their circle, be in their cave, and kind of create their magic from within. The men create it, you know, they do their thing without. The women are doing it within. And as we deepen our ability to find that inner wisdom and bring it forth, which I believe is probably a lifelong practice, but as we do that, all of the planet will feel it. Every time one of us, every time just one of us has that moment, just a moment, that ripples out and it touches other people having moments. And then we're connected. We're creating a grid of awakening, and we do it together. And if the women are willing to, you know, we've had to be women in a men's world, and we've had to act like men in order to be heard. And, you know, being a child of the 60s, you know, that was the thing. And it really wasn't that great. You know, we really were still not ourselves, but it was a step in our awakening and in what we were bringing forward. And it wasn't the spiritual part. We had to anchor ourselves in the linear part and say, you know, I can run a business just like a man. And then we started to be taken a little more seriously. And there are a lot more, you know, dads taking care of kids while moms work, or sharing that instead of women trying to do the job and the, you know, the grocery shopping and keeping the house and making the meals. And that was just crazy. It's becoming more balanced. And, you know, and that's something you have to find in your own wisdom and say, you know, this isn't working, and this is what works, and this is who I am. And, you know, it's kind of a take it or leave it situation now. You can take all of this good stuff along with it. But I think there's a lot of fear also, as women start waking up. And it's not going to stop it, however.
Right.
It's not going to stop it. So we're just going to have to find our way through that, and, you know, with grace and ease, hopefully.
So I want to stay with that idea of balance for a minute. And I don't want our listeners to think that, as the women stayed in the cave and sort of worked within, and that's only what they did, or the men stayed outside and protect, and that's the only thing they did. That as we come to today, you know, that there is, we're looking really for balance of those divine masculine feminine energies. And all people have both. They may be out of balance, but we all have both. And so I want to ask you, I want to take it in a personal direction, because I think you and I have something in common in this regard. So you lost your beloved, your Sid, some years ago, 4 years ago. My husband passed away 2.5 years ago, and then my father passed away this January. So within 3 years, I lost, and those are I have my son, but, you know, he's a child still. And so I lost kind of the male, you know, energy, the big male presence in my life. And that has really pushed me to begin to balance out my own, you know, to
Yeah.
be the man for myself,
Yeah.
which for me, I realized I had to take action, which I wasn't very big on.
Yeah.
That was the male energy I had to bring up. So I'm wondering how you experienced it. You know, if those when they happen, what do they do to us, and where do they push us?
Well, it was definitely a shock and a loss for me, and my life will never be the same, and it shouldn't be. It should continue to evolve, um, and uh, the blessing of sharing that time with him will always be with me, and I know he's still with me, and I'm also I I believe for me that he had some kind of agreement with Lee, or they had some kind of agreement, not even a conscious agreement,
Mm-hmm.
but an unconscious agreement or a subconscious or a karmic or something, because it was pretty smooth in that way
Mm-hmm.
and continues to be that way. It's and I recognize that not everyone can have that or has that. Um, again, as bad as losing someone like that is, the blessings that came along with it were and are just kind of mind-boggling sometimes. And I certainly have grieved, and I have had wonderful and amazing people around me that have helped me. Uh, and I don't know if this was like this for you, but I have always had more masculine energy at work. So I'm a double Taurus, so I can just put my head down and bull through whatever. And before I met Sid, I was single for 11 years raising my son. So, I was that single mom, working and doing everything else. And the challenge for me is to not do that, is
Mm-hmm.
to feel that spirit's got my back, that I am safe, that I will always be taken care of, that I can take a break, that I can, take a day off the computer. Or that, that I can have a goddess day where, I just decide in every moment, yeah, I don't feel like doing that. I feel like doing that. Or, yeah, I think I'm just going to not do this today and just, you know, do whatever else I feel like doing. Or, call somebody up and say, do you want to just, have tea in the middle of the day or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's more my challenge, is to actually be more in my divine feminine. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and in a way that I feel safe and supported and loved by God, the angels, the divine, the Lemurians, the Pleiadians, Cryon, all of that. Uh, and being a very practical person, that's my bottom line. My bottom line is practicality. And so I have to be aware of that and not drift into the doing mode, and being both parents and being, more masculine, and just allow for the divine to open the door for me when I'm, it's it's as simple as that. When I think of it, that, walking through a building, if there's a man coming out, I don't stop to wait for him to open the door for me. I open it for him or me or whoever else is there.
Right.
So those kinds of little things are telling about, how do I navigate as a single woman in the world, and how did I navigate that transition?
Mm-hmm.
And probably it's very different for you. And to have a man my beloved was definitely from the old school. He wanted to support me and take care of me and open the doors and, buy me presents and, you know, give me whatever. And it was hard for me to accept that and because I know how to take care of myself and there's no strings attached. So now I really try to be aware of that. And it's not like I want someone or something to take care of me, but I want to be aware of the balance that is there. That spirit, I know that there's a perfect plan already in place, and all I have to do is step into it. But I have to step into it. I have to say yes. I don't have the expectation that, miracles will just happen. I have to partake in order to have that experience and say yes to spirit, to the universe, to the energy, to my own life and my own life unfolding.
And for me, I found that one of the things that I kind of became aware of after their passing was that I used to, I guess in a way similar to you, I used to feel that I had to be the caretaker. That even though, and it wasn't conscious, even though I felt like, well, I'm the woman, they are sort of men of the family, right? But
Right.
I was actually taking care of the family most of the time. I was, financially and so I was always a caretaker. And one of the things that I need to learn is vulnerability and allowing somebody,
Right.
and trusting them.
Yeah.
Because I always thought, well, they can trust me, but I can't really trust them.
Right.
And so that's one of the transitions that has been unveiling for me, is to really say, okay, I'm ready to trust, or I'm willing to be in that position where somebody else can take care of me and I don't have to be, in charge of everything. So yeah, that's kind of, it's interesting how these things.
Well, and I think, again, we really are hardwired that our vulnerability is not an asset.
Mm-hmm.
That we need protection, that we need, that it's very easy to be violated or to be taken advantage of in some way. And so, but our vulnerability is what makes us so receptive to the voice of spirit. So I find that the more I can relax and just really surrender and trust, the more that voice comes through and the more I become a carrier of it.
Wonderful. So this is a great sort of transition, because I'd like to ask you, from your wisdom and the wisdom of Mele'ha, what are some of the concrete steps that people that are listening and watching this today can start taking to help their evolution, to help that melding with the masculine and feminine that we are meant to have?
Well, I think that probably the most important thing is to start to listen to your own inner voice, because no one else's wisdom is right for you but yours. And we can have guides, and I have, and we should, and second opinions are great, but in the end, our own inner voice is the best guidance system for that. And we've been trained out of that. We have been, trained to try to be like someone else, or be like the norm, or be like this, or be like that. So to find out what that is for you and how it comes forth, it's an incredible exploration to look at that and then begin to trust what that is, and what you're hearing or what you're seeing. And some people are visual, some people have writing, and some people have just really gut instincts, or they a sign from the universe. because all of that means something. And to really begin to honor that as the real reason that we're here, not to just build stuff and do stuff and make stuff happen, that we're really here to carry this spiritual grid, this message, this way of being, all of us. And when we can honor that in ourselves, we begin to honor it in others, and they begin to honor it in us. You know, that beautiful, the meaning of namaste, right?
Mm-hmm.
I recognize and I honor the God in you as
Right.
you recognize and honor the God in me.
Mm-hmm.
And it is that, but it has to start right here with us.
Right.
So for me, learning to listen to that, because it's quiet, it doesn't shout. And sometimes it's so fast, you just say, what was that? What was that? It's gone. And you know, that happens for me in the stillness. It does not happen in my doing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another gift of my, you know, having the challenge of being more in the divine feminine, is being in that stillness and really recognizing that that's when that voice speaks. And that voice is only for me, mine, and only for you, yours, yours, yours.
Right.
And we can share from there, and we can share with other people from there, and they can share with us, and we can begin to create a community that is based on that inner knowing, that beauty that comes from deep inside of us, that is so unique and spiritual and balanced, and it's all right inside. It's not outside anywhere, it's all inside. So for me, in the workshops that I do with Lee, is teaching practical tools to sort of that be still and know place. And what we can do, these practical tools that we can use, I know it has to be a thing that we do on a regular basis. It's not like that funny commercial where you go to the gym and do one lift and you're fit, or you do one yoga pose and you're done, or you eat one blueberry and you've had all your antioxidants. You know, you can't just do it once. Yet, we may be evolved to a level where one is enough, but right now it's called practice for a reason. So it becomes my sadhana, my spiritual practice. Because every day it has to be XYZ, whatever it is for you, and to find what really works. And there are lots and lots and lots of ways. And for me, I love teaching that, because I don't think we can get there from just a head process. I think from someone else's head process, whether or not it's even a cryon channel. We have to go home and do the work.
Right, absolutely. And this work is for men and women.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not just for women that attend your sisterhood.
No, it's for everybody. We do this together.
Right. So, unfortunately, we're about to run out of time. So before we finish, I wanted to ask you if, kind of what are you up to these days? What exciting things are happening? And if you'd like to tell our viewers and listeners about anything that they can find. You know, I know you do healing work, and we didn't even get to that. So that's a whole other treasure.
Yeah, we can do that another time. Coming up is Lee and I will be in Stamford, Connecticut in a couple of weeks, and then we'll be doing the Discovery in Canada, and then we go off to Munich to do a beautiful event there, and after that I'll be having a Lemurian Sisterhood in Switzerland.
Wow.
And I'm really excited. I haven't been to Switzerland. I've been to Munich, but I haven't been to Switzerland. And, you know, later in the year, more of the same. And then we finish the year with the Return to Lemuria event in Hawaii. And I'll be doing a live stream on Facebook from there when we have our end of 2017, God, beginning of 2017. I live about 2 years out, so I always have to check myself.
Right.
So it'll be and this was a sacred assignment that Cryon gave me last November 2016, that at the end of 2017, I needed to have this celebration of the year end and the new beginning. So that's very exciting. And then there are the Lemurian codes for healing that have surfaced.
Right.
So maybe that's another talk too.
Absolutely. There is so much to, I'm just trying to, there's so much to just cover. It's just, this work is amazing. And there's so much that people can get from the channels that are specifically given to women. And by the way, I just want to clarify, which is what Cryon does. These channels are given to women first as an honoring for, for their presence, but they're really available to everybody to listen to. But women get a chance to listen to them first before it's kind of released.
Yes, and the interesting thing is that Cryon always says, my partner steps away, in honor of the gender. And so Lee is really never conscious of the channel until he hears it. When he channels to a regular mixed group of people, he says, my partner steps aside. And he remains conscious.
Right.
And can remember. So yes, I am continuously honored by that. And we all are in that information and the guidance that comes from that.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Wolf, thank you so much.
Yes, Goddess.
Namaste. Thank you for everything you do and for just, my God, the energy that you bring to this planet and where the places that you take us. Just please keep doing that. Thank you for that.
That's the plan right now.
Right.
And thank you, Natalie. You're a beautiful goddess in your own right, and all the wonderful things you're doing. You keep doing what you're doing too.
I will. Thank you.
All right.